The stars had never looked so far away. Ambassador Park Ho stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Light, watching the endless darkness of space stretch before him. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many wars and too few victories. Behind him, the soft hum of the ship's engines filled the silence. Humanity had joined the Galactic Confederacy only 12 years ago. 12 years of being treated like children. 12 years of being called primitives, newcomers, and vermin. The galaxy had over 200 spacefaring species, and humans were the youngest and weakest among them. But Park believed in peace. He had spent his entire life believing in it. Ambassador, a voice called from behind him. He turned to see Captain Haywan approaching. She was a tall woman in her 40s, with short black hair and a military bearing that never left her even in diplomatic settings. She had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 20 years before taking command of this ship. "We will enter space in 6 hours," she said. "Are you certain about this?" Park smiled softly. "No, but I am certain that we must try." The Dominion was one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. They controlled over 300 star systems and commanded a fleet of 15,000 warships. For the past 5 years, they had been raiding human colony ships along the outer rim. Hundreds of civilians had died. Earth had protested to the Galactic Confederacy, but the Confederacy was afraid of the. So they had pressured humanity to negotiate instead. Park had volunteered for the mission. Many had called him a fool. They hated humans. They saw them as insects, as a disease spreading across the galaxy. But Park believed that even the hardest hearts could be softened with patience and respect. "The truce banner is active," Captain said. "They cannot attack us while we carry it." The sacred truce banner was an ancient symbol in galactic law. For 3,000 years, no species had ever violated it. Ships carrying the banner were protected by the honor of every civilization in the Confederacy. To attack a truce ship was to become an enemy of all. "I know," Park said. "That is why I have hope." Lieutenant Ho joined them at the window. He was the head of the ambassador's security detail, a quiet man in his 30s with scars on his hands from the Mars uprising. He did not speak much, but his eyes were always watching. "Sir," said, "I have reviewed the security arrangements on Prime. They have agreed to let us bring only 6 guards." "That will be enough," Park said. Did not look convinced. "With respect, Ambassador, 6 guards cannot protect you if they decide to break the truce." Park placed a hand on the lieutenant's shoulder. "If they break the truce, 100 guards would not save us. We must trust in the process." Nodded slowly, but his jaw was tight. The days passed slowly on the Horizon's Light. Park spent his time reviewing his notes and practicing his speeches. He wanted to offer the something they could not refuse: trade agreements, technology sharing, mutual defense pacts. He believed that if he could show them the benefits of peace, they would choose it over war. Counselor Bora, his young aide, often joined him in his quarters. She was only 28, with bright eyes and an idealistic heart. She had studied at the Terran Academy and had dreamed of making first contact with alien species since she was a child. "Do you think they will listen?" she asked one evening. Park looked up from his notes. "I think they will hear us. Whether they listen is up to them." "But if they don't?" "Then we will try again," Park said. And again, peace is not a single conversation. It is 1,000 conversations, each one building on the last. Smiled. "I hope you are right, Ambassador." "So do I," Park said quietly. On the final night before their arrival, Park made a transmission to Earth. He knew it might be his last, though he did not say so. "This is Ambassador Park Ho," he said, his voice calm and steady. "We are about to enter space. I do not know what awaits us there, but I want you to know that we go with open hands and hopeful hearts. If we cannot make peace with our enemies, we will never earn our place among the stars. Whatever happens, remember that we tried." The transmission ended. Park sat alone in his quarters for a long time, staring at the wall. The Horizon's light entered space the next morning. The escorts arrived within minutes. 3 massive warships, each one larger than anything in the Terran fleet, surrounded the diplomatic vessel. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. They moved like predators circling wounded prey. Captain kept her composure, but her hands were tight on the armrests of her command chair. "They are hailing us," the communications officer said. "On screen," ordered. An officer appeared on the. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that gleamed with cold intelligence. His voice was harsh, like metal scraping against stone. "Human vessel," he said, "you will follow us to Prime. Do not deviate from the assigned course. Any attempt to scan our ships or planets will be considered an act of war." "Understood," replied. "We are here under the sacred truce banner. We seek only peaceful dialogue." The officer made a sound that might have been laughter. "We shall see." The screen went dark. Park stood on the bridge, watching the warships through the. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like storms or predators. He wondered if the beings inside them had families, if they had children, if they had ever known peace. He had to believe they had. He had to believe that somewhere, buried under the hatred and the pride, there was something that could be reached. "Ambassador," Captain said softly, "we are on approach to Prime." Park nodded. "Then let us go and make peace." The Horizon's light descended toward the of the Dominion. Below them, a world of black mountains and red oceans waited. Above them, 1,000 warships hung in the darkness like silent judges. And in the heart of the ship, a small group of humans prepared to face an empire. They carried no weapons but their words. They carried no armor but their hope. And in the cold silence of space, they did not know that they were walking toward their deaths. Prime was a world of shadows. The human delegation stepped off the shuttle onto a landing platform made of black stone. The air was thin and cold, and the sky above was the color of dried blood. In the distance, massive towers rose like fingers reaching toward the heavens, each one carved with symbols of conquest and war. Ambassador Park Ho walked at the front of the group. Behind him came Captain Hay-1, Lieutenant Ho, Counselor Bora, and 6 security officers. They wore formal diplomatic uniforms, gray and white, with the flag of Earth on their shoulders. A group of soldiers waited for them. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 gleaming eyes. Their armor was black, and they carried energy rifles that hummed with barely contained power. "You will come with us," the lead soldier said. His voice carried no emotion. Park nodded politely. "Thank you for receiving us." The soldier did not respond. He turned and began walking toward the nearest tower. The humans followed. The walk through the city was long and silent. Civilians watched from doorways and windows. Some hissed at the humans. Others made gestures that seemed to mean disgust or contempt. Children pointed and laughed. Adults pulled them away with sharp words. Counselor walked close to Park. Her face was pale, but she kept her head high. "They hate us," she whispered. "They fear us," Park replied quietly. "Fear often looks like hatred." "How can they fear us? We are so much weaker than them." Park smiled sadly. "That is exactly why they fear us. We are weak, and yet we keep growing. We keep spreading. We keep surviving. To them, we are a mystery they cannot control." The throne room of High Sovereign was the largest space Park had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered with the skulls and banners of conquered species. Thousands of nobles filled the galleries, watching the humans with cold, hungry eyes. And at the far end of the room, on a throne made of black metal and bone, sat himself. He was ancient. His gray skin was cracked and weathered, and his 4 eyes burned with a cold fire that had seen centuries of war. He wore armor covered with medals and symbols of victory. In his hand, He held a ceremonial blade that was said to have killed 1,000 enemies. Park approached the throne and stopped at a respectful distance. He bowed low. "High Sovereign," he said clearly, "I am Ambassador Park Ho of Earth. I come in peace under the sacred truce banner to seek an end to the conflict between our peoples." Stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. "You come in peace," he said. "You speak of ending conflict, but you are the conflict human. Your species is a disease. You spread across the galaxy like a plague, consuming everything in your path." Park kept his voice calm. "We seek only to live in peace with our neighbors. We have no desire for conquest. We offer trade, cooperation, and friendship." "Friendship?" laughed. The sound echoed through the throne room, and the nobles laughed with him. "What friendship can exist between a predator and prey? You are prey, human. You have always been prey. The only reason you still exist is because we have not yet decided to hunt you." "Then let us change that relationship," Park said. "Let us build something new, something based on mutual respect and shared prosperity." His eyes narrowed. "You dare speak of respect? You, whose species crawled out of the mud only a few thousand years ago. You, who cannot even defend your own colony ships." Park felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had trained for this. He had prepared for insults and contempt. He would not let them break him. "We are young," he admitted, "but we learn quickly, and we believe that every species, no matter how old or young, has value. We believe that the galaxy is large enough for all of us." Stood from his throne. He was taller than any of the humans, and his shadow fell over them like a shroud. "You believe," he said slowly. "You hope, you dream, but you do not understand. The galaxy is not a place of hope. It is a place of power. The strong rule, the weak serve. That is the way of things. That has always been the way of things." He raised his ceremonial blade. "You came here under the sacred truce banner. You thought it would protect you. You thought we would respect your little symbols and traditions." Park felt cold spread through his body. Behind him, Lieutenant's hand moved toward his sidearm. "But the truce is for equals," continued, "and you are not our equals. You are nothing." "This is a violation of galactic law," Park said. His voice was steady, but his heart was pounding. "The Confederacy will." "The Confederacy will do nothing," said. "They are cowards. They fear us. They will watch and they will do nothing." He gestured to his soldiers. "Seize them." They moved with terrifying speed. Lieutenant drew his weapon, but an energy blast struck him in the chest before he could fire. He fell to the ground, smoke rising from his uniform. Captain fought back with her bare hands, breaking the arm of one soldier before 3 others brought her down. The security officers were killed in seconds, their bodies crumpling to the black stone floor. Counselor screamed. A soldier grabbed her by the hair and threw her to her knees beside Park. The ambassador did not struggle. He stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on. "You are making a terrible mistake," Park said quietly. "Not for me, for yourself, for your people." Laughed again. "I am teaching the galaxy a lesson." He pressed a button on his throne and suddenly Park understood. Cameras, drones. The execution was being broadcast. Every species in the galaxy was watching. "Let this be a lesson to the vermin of Earth," declared, his voice echoing across 1,000 worlds. "You are nothing. You have always been nothing, and you will die as nothing." He raised his blade. Park closed his eyes. He thought of Earth. He thought of blue oceans and green forests. He thought of his daughter who had begged him not to go. He thought of all the words he would never say. The blade fell. And across the galaxy, humanity watched their ambassador die. Captain was next. Then Lieutenant's body was desecrated. Then Counselor, who died with tears on her face but no begging on her lips. The broadcast ended with final words. "This is what happens to vermin." On Earth, in homes and offices and ships and stations, billions of humans stared at their screens. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence was absolute. Then slowly, the silence began to change. It became something else. Something cold. Something patient. Something that would not forget. The video played on every screen on Earth. In homes and hospitals, in schools and factories, in military bases and government buildings, 11 billion humans watched their ambassador die. They watched Captain fight until her last breath. They watched Lieutenant fall. They watched young counselor cry as the blade came down. And they watched laugh. For 24 hours no one spoke. The world fell silent, streets emptied, businesses closed, people sat alone or with their families, staring at nothing, trying to understand what had happened. President Mi sat in her office in Seoul, watching the video for the 7th time. She was 51 years old, with black hair streaked with gray and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She had been elected on a platform of peace and cooperation. She had believed that humanity's future lay in diplomacy, not war. Now she watched that belief die alongside Park Ho. Her chief of staff entered the room quietly. "Madam President, the Galactic Confederacy has issued a statement." "Read it," said without looking away from the screen. They condemn the actions of the Dominion. They call for an immediate investigation. They urge all parties to seek a peaceful resolution. Laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. A peaceful resolution. Our people were murdered under a flag of truce, and they want a peaceful resolution. What should I tell them? Finally turned away from the screen. Her eyes were dry, but something had changed in them. Something hard and cold had replaced the warmth that had always been there. "Tell them nothing," she said. "Not yet." 3 days after the execution, the United Terran Assembly gathered for an emergency session. Every representative was present. The gallery was packed with journalists and citizens. The world was watching. President walked to the podium. She carried no notes. She did not need them. 3 days ago, she began, Ambassador Park Ho and his delegation were murdered by the Dominion. They were killed under the sacred truce banner, a symbol that has protected diplomats for 3,000 years. They were killed while offering peace. They were killed while the galaxy watched. She paused, letting the silence fill the chamber. The Galactic Confederacy has condemned this act. They have called for an investigation. They have urged us to seek peace. Her voice hardened. But they have done nothing. They will do nothing, because they are afraid. The chamber was absolutely still. High Sovereign called us vermin. He said we are nothing. He said we have always been nothing. Eyes swept across the assembly. Today, we teach the galaxy what happens when you corner vermin. She raised her hand, and an aide brought forward a document. By my authority as President of the United Terran Government, I hereby announce our withdrawal from the Galactic Confederacy. We will no longer beg for protection from those who will not provide it. We will no longer seek friendship from those who do not respect us. The chamber erupted in murmurs and gasps, but continued. Furthermore, I hereby issue a formal declaration of war against the Dominion. This declaration is transmitted to every species in the galaxy. Let them all see. Let them all know. She looked directly into the cameras. Ambassador Park believed in peace. He died for peace. We honor his memory by doing what he could not. We will end this war. We will bring justice to those who murdered our people. And we will make certain that no one ever again believes that humanity can be slaughtered without consequence. The chamber rose to its feet. The applause was not joyful. It was something deeper, something darker. It was the sound of a species united by grief and fury. That night, President met with Admiral Jun in a secure bunker beneath the Pacific Ocean. Was 60 years old, with a shaved head and a face carved from stone. His son had been killed by raiders 5 years ago. He had been waiting for this day ever since. "How long?" asked. "The public fleet is 200 ships," said. "They have 15,000. If we fight them directly, we lose." Nodded, that is the public fleet. Smiled, it was not a kind smile. Madam President, when I took command of the defense fleet, I knew this day would come. Not if, but when. So I made preparations. He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared. It showed ship designs, weapon systems, and manufacturing facilities hidden across the solar system and beyond. Project Ember, he said. We have been building in secret for 15 years. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapons factories on the moons of Jupiter, research stations in deep space where no one would ever think to look. Studied the display. How many ships? 800 warships. But more importantly, we have weapons the galaxy has never seen. Faster-than-light missiles that can strike before the enemy knows we have fired, that punch through their shields like paper, autonomous drones that hunt their ships in packs, and stealth technology so advanced that we can approach their worlds without being detected. The Confederacy will be furious when they learn. The Confederacy abandoned us, said coldly. They lost the right to be furious. Dr. Han entered the room. She was the chief scientist of Project Ember, a small woman with glasses and nervous hands. But behind those nervous hands was one of the greatest minds in human history. The weapons are ready, she said. We can begin deployment immediately. Looked at both of them. The galaxy thinks we are weak. They think we will surrender or die trying to fight. They are already laughing at our declaration of war. Let them laugh, said. They will stop laughing soon enough. How soon can we strike? Considered, 3 months. We need time to deploy the ghost fleets to position our assets to plan the attacks. When we move everywhere at once. They will not know what hit them. Nodded slowly. 3 months of silence, 3 months of letting them think we are afraid. And then we remind the galaxy why humanity survived when so many others did not. She walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was celebrating. Somewhere out there the galaxy was laughing. They would not laugh for long. Admiral said quietly, make them pay for every drop of blood they spilled. Saluted, with pleasure, Madam President. The bunker fell silent. Outside, the ocean pressed against the walls, dark and deep and patient. 3 months. In 3 months, humanity would show the galaxy what it truly meant to awaken a sleeping predator. But for now, they waited. They planned. They remembered. And in the silence, they sharpened their claws. 3 months passed in silence. The galaxy watched and waited. The Dominion boasted of their victory. High Sovereign gave speeches about the weakness of humanity, about how their declaration of war was nothing but the barking of frightened animals. The Galactic Confederacy sent nervous messages to Earth, urging restraint, offering to mediate. Earth did not respond. Some species began to pity humanity, others mocked them. The jokes spread across alien networks. What do humans and insects have in common? They both make noise before you crush them. They did not bother to prepare for war. Why would they? Their intelligence reported that humanity had only 200 warships. Their own fleet numbered 15,000. The math was simple. The outcome was certain. They were wrong. On the 91st day after the declaration of war, at exactly midnight Earth time, humanity struck. Commander O1 sat in the command chair of the stealth cruiser Silent Knife, watching her tactical display. Around her, 46 other ships waited in the darkness between stars. They had traveled for weeks through empty space, avoiding all trade routes and sensor networks. No one knew they were there. No one would know until it was too late. All ships report ready, her communications officer said quietly. O nodded. She was 42 years old with sharp eyes and a mind that thought 3 steps ahead of everyone else. She had designed humanity's new doctrine of warfare, not force against force, not fleet against fleet. Strike the supply lines, destroy the infrastructure, make them bleed from 1,000 cuts. Targets confirmed, her tactical officer reported. Supply Depot 7, fuel reserves for their entire northern fleet. O allowed herself a small smile. Send the signal. Operation Ember begins now. Across the galaxy, in 47 different locations, human ships emerged from the darkness. The Depot 7 had only a small defense force. They were not expecting attack. Their sensors did not detect the human ships until they were already firing. The first wave was missiles. FTL missiles that crossed thousands of kilometers in seconds. They struck the defense platforms before they could raise their shields. Explosions bloomed in the darkness of space, silent and beautiful and deadly. The second wave was drones. Thousands of autonomous hunters that swarmed the remaining ships like angry insects. They were small and fast and relentless. They found every weakness, every gap in armor, every exposed system. The third wave was the massive electromagnetic weapons that accelerated metal slugs to a fraction of light speed. The slugs punched through shields like they were not there. They punched through hulls like they were made of paper. Ships that had survived 100 battles were torn apart in seconds. In 12 minutes, the depot was destroyed. Fuel reserves that would have supplied the fleet for a year burned in the void. Defense platforms drifted as wreckage. Not a single human ship was damaged. Target destroyed, the tactical officer reported. No enemy survivors detected. O nodded. Move to secondary target. Maintain stealth protocols. The silent knife vanished into the darkness, leaving only destruction behind. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated 46 more times. Supply depots, communication relays, shipyards, sensor arrays, every target had been chosen carefully, every attack planned to perfection. The strikes were simultaneous. They could not warn each other. By the time they understood what was happening, it was already over. High Sovereign received the news in his throne room. A messenger ran in, breathless and terrified. Your Majesty, we are under attack. Multiple locations. Our northern supply network is gone. The shipyards are burning. We have lost contact with 17 sector commands. Rose from his throne. How many ships? We do not know, Your Majesty. Our sensors detected nothing until they were already firing. They appear and disappear like ghosts. Ghosts, repeated. His voice was cold. Find them, destroy them. But they could not find them. The human ships did not fight like any enemy they had ever faced. They did not form battle lines. They did not hold territory. They struck without warning and vanished without a trace. They called them the ghost fleets. Sergeant First Class No-Gi was not a ghost. He was flesh and blood, and he was very much present when his assault shuttle crashed through the atmosphere of the colony world of 5. 30 seconds to landing, the pilot announced. No checked his weapon one more time. He was 35 years old, with hands that had killed and eyes that had watched friends die. He had served in the Terran Marines for 12 years. He had never fought aliens before. Today that would change. The shuttle hit the ground hard. The doors blew open, and No was running before his boots touched the dirt. Around him, 50 other Marines spread out, weapons raised, moving toward their target, a communication center that coordinated their fleet movements in this sector. The guards were not prepared. They had never been invaded. They had never imagined that anyone would dare to attack their soil. They died before they understood what was happening. No moved through the facility with cold efficiency. Room by room, corridor by corridor. They were taller and stronger, but the humans were faster and more precise. They did not waste ammunition. They did not hesitate. They did not show mercy. In the control room, No found an officer trying to send a distress signal. He shot the officer twice in the chest, then walked to the console and planted the explosive charges. Building secure, he reported over the radio. Charges set, ready for extraction. Copy that, Sergeant. Shuttle inbound, excellent work. As the shuttle lifted off, No watched the communication center explode. A pillar of fire rose into the alien sky. Somewhere in the galaxy, a fleet would now be flying blind. One down, many more to go. The war continued for months. Human ships struck and vanished, struck and vanished. Convoys disappeared. Worlds lost contact with their government. Officers began to fear the darkness between the stars. Commander O became a legend. Her tactics were studied by every species in the galaxy. Her name was whispered in fear by commanders. After the destruction of the shipyards, she sent a message to the fleet. It was broadcast on every frequency, impossible to ignore. "You wanted war," her voice said calmly. "We brought it." The message ended, but its meaning echoed across the galaxy. Humanity was not prey. Humanity had never been prey. And the predators were about to learn what it meant to be hunted. 18 months. That was all it took. 18 months of relentless attacks. 18 months of burning shipyards and silent communication networks and supply convoys that never arrived. 18 months of terror. The Dominion, which had ruled 300 star systems for 1,000 years, was brought to its knees by a species they had called vermin. High Sovereign stood in his throne room, but he no longer looked like a conqueror. His gray skin had turned pale. His 4 eyes were bloodshot with exhaustion. His hands shook as he read the latest reports. 70% of his fleet was gone, not destroyed in glorious battle, but hunted down in the darkness between stars. His supply lines were shattered. His colonies were starving. His people were beginning to whisper about surrender. "Your Majesty," his chief advisor said carefully, "the humans have sent another message. They demand unconditional surrender." Crumpled the report in his fist. "I will never surrender to vermin." "Your Majesty, with respect, we have no choice. Our fleet cannot find their ships. We cannot protect our worlds. If we continue fighting, we will have nothing left to rule." "Then we die with honor." The advisor hesitated. "The people do not want to die with honor, Your Majesty. They want to live." Turned on him with fury in his eyes. But before he could speak, the alarms began to wail. An officer rushed into the throne room. "Your Majesty, the human fleet has arrived. They are in orbit around Prime." Walked to the window. Above his world, the sky was filled with ships, human ships, hundreds of them, their weapons pointed at his cities, his palaces, his people. For the first time in his long life, understood fear. Admiral Jun stood on the bridge of the flagship Justice Delivered, looking down at the... He remembered watching the execution of Ambassador Park. He remembered the cold rage that had filled him. He remembered promising himself that he would stand here, above this world, and demand payment for every drop of human blood. That day had come. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Admiral Jun of the United Terran Fleet. High Sovereign, you have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will reduce your capital city to ash. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. This is your final warning." He cut the channel before could respond. The hour passed slowly, waited in silence, watching the planet below. His officers did not speak. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship systems. 47 minutes after the ultimatum, a transmission came from the surface. Appeared on the... He looked old and broken. His ceremonial armor was gone. He wore simple robes like a common citizen. "We surrender," he said, his voice cracked on the words. "I accept your terms." Allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, but only a moment. "You will be taken into custody to stand trial for crimes against peace," he said. "Your military will disarm immediately. Your government will cooperate fully with the occupation. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Nodded slowly. "It will be done." The screen went dark. turned to his officers. Send the landing forces, secure the government district, and find the throne room where Ambassador Park died. I want to stand there myself. 2 days later, President Mi addressed the Galactic Confederacy. Her image was broadcast to 1,000 worlds. Every species watched as the leader of humanity spoke. 2 years ago, she began, Ambassador Park Ho came to this galaxy seeking peace. He offered friendship. He offered cooperation. He offered hope, and he was murdered for it. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Galactic Confederacy condemned this act. They called for investigation. They urged restraint, but they did nothing. They watched our people die and they did nothing. Her voice hardened. Today, the Dominion has surrendered. High Sovereign will stand trial for his crimes. The galaxy has learned that humanity is not vermin to be exterminated. We are not insects to be crushed. We are not prey to be hunted. She looked directly into the camera. We did not ask to be feared. We came to this galaxy with open hands and hopeful hearts, but you taught us that hope is not enough. You taught us that in this galaxy, respect is earned with blood and fire. We have paid that price. We have earned that respect. From this day forward, let every species understand. Humanity protects its own. Attack our people and we will find you. Harm our citizens and there will be no corner of the galaxy dark enough to hide you. This is not a threat. This is a promise. She raised her chin. Ambassador Park believed in peace. He died for that belief. We honor his memory by building a future where no human will ever again be murdered under a flag of truce. But we have also learned his lesson. Peace must be backed by strength, and humanity is strong. Remember this day. Remember what happens when you push humanity too far. Remember and do not make the same mistake again. The transmission ended. On Earth, in the city of Seoul, a memorial was built for Ambassador Park Ho and his delegation. It stood in a garden of cherry trees, a simple pillar of black stone with their names carved in gold. The inscription at the base read, "They went with open hands, we remember with closed fists." People came from all over the world to lay flowers at the memorial. Parents brought their children. Veterans saluted. Diplomats bowed their heads in silence. Ambassador Park had died believing in peace. He had been wrong about the Confederacy, but he had not been wrong about humanity. Humanity had survived. Humanity had risen. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. The stars were no longer so far away. In the throne room on Prime, Admiral stood where Ambassador Park had died. The black stone floor had been cleaned, but he could still imagine the blood that had stained it. He placed a small flag on the ground, the flag of Earth, the flag that Ambassador Park had carried to his death. "We came back," said quietly. "We kept our promise." He stood there for a long time, alone with his thoughts, alone with the ghosts of those who had fallen. Then he turned and walked away. There was still work to be done, a galaxy to watch, a future to build. But for now, for this moment, humanity could rest. They had earned it. They had paid for it. And they would never forget.